Alright, so we have the ability to fetch the weather for a particular city and state. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to change the location. So we need a input up here that we can start to type in, and we also want to use the Autocomplete API from W Underground, and that'll have cities and states pop up as we type. Okay, so let's go to weather.html, and we're going to go let's go right here above this row because it's going to be at the very top, and I'm just going to copy this row. Okay, we're going to change this to width 100 and then get rid of this stuff. Alright, so we're going to be using a form, and I'm going to put each item in a list. Okay, so let's say iron list, and then in the list let's do iron item, okay, and in here we're going to have the label and input. So let's do iron label, and let's say fixed, and the label is going to be city, and then under that we're going to have the input, and let's see, we're going to give it a type of text, and then set value to nothing. And we want to close that off, and let's save. Okay, so now we have our input. Now what we want to happen here is when we start typing, we want to run a function to work with the autocomplete. So in the input directive right here, we're going to put an event. We're going to use some parentheses and say key up, and then we're going to set that to a function called getQuery. Alright, we also need a way to get the value, so we're going to use ngModel right here, and we're going to set this to search str for search string. Alright, so let's save that, and then we're going to go to weather.js, and we're going to create that function, getQuery. And let's just test it out. We'll say console.log test. So now every time I type something in, every time I type a letter, it's going to echo out our console log test. Okay, so what we need to do is that search string, we need to make a property of our component. So let's go ahead and add that up here. That should actually have a semicolon right there. And I'm going to say this dot search str, and then down here let's console log search str, this dot search str. Okay, so now every time I type, you can see down here it's console logging whatever I put in. So that's what we want to happen. Now what we want to do is we want to run a service function to search for cities that match whatever is being typed in. So let's go to our weather service, and let's create a function down here called search cities. Now what I want to do is take a look at the documentation for autocomplete. Alright, so let's see, documentation, and over here we want the Autocomplete API. Okay, so this is the request format. We want autocomplete.wunderground.com/aq query equals, and then whatever the query is going to be, which of course is going to be our search string. So what we'll do is let's copy this, and what we're going to do is in our service we're going to add a search URL up here in the constructor. So this dot search URL is equal to, and then we're going to paste that in. We're going to end at the equal sign because obviously the query is going to be different. So down in search cities, what I'm going to do is copy what we have here because we're making the same type of request just to a different URL. And we're going to change, let's get rid of this. And let's put in search, or this dot search URL, and then we just want to concatenate. Okay, we're going to go like that, and then attach the search string, which is going to come in as a parameter. Okay, so let's save that. And then we'll go back to weather.js, and down in get query we're going to change this up. Okay, we want to say this, actually you know what we can do is copy this. And let's put a semicolon there. Okay, so instead of calling get weather this time, we're going to call search cities. Okay, and then what we're going to pass in is this dot search str. Okay, and then in our subscribe here, we're going to change weather to res, and then let's set this dot results equal to res dot results. Okay, because this is what it gives us back, an object called results. Alright, and then let's add this dot results up here as a property. Okay, and then what we'll do is let's console.log this dot results. Okay, so let's try that out. So I'm going to start to type something in, and let's take a look at what we have down here. Alright, now we're getting a message that says no access control allowed. Origin header is present on the requested resource, is therefore not allowed access. So what this means is that since we're making a request to a different domain, it's not allowing us access. Alright, now there's a few ways to get around this, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure why this didn't happen with the other GET request. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable something called cores. Alright, or not enable it, it's enabled on the server, but we want to use something called cores. And it's really easy with with Ionic 2. Let me see if I can find the documentation. And let's see. And you can see that this is the exact message that we're getting down here. And this is actually a pretty good article about cores. Let's see. So what we want is we want to look right here. And this code here, you can see it's telling us to look in ionic.project. I'm not sure if that was if this is for Ionic 1, because it's now called ionic.config. And if we go and look in our folder structure here, we have ionic.config.json. If we open that up, we have an object with a name and an app ID, and you can see this is the same thing. So what we need to do is add an array called proxies, and then have our URL that we want to use. In our case, it's the W underground URL, and then we want to specify a path, a local path that will basically proxy this URL. Okay, so in this case, if they go to /API, it's going to call this URL right here, the proxy URL. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and go into that file, and let's put a comma right here, and then we're going to say proxies, which is going to be an array, and let's put in our path. Now what I want to do is I'm going to also add a proxy for the conditions URL. Alright, so that is going to be at /API, just like the example. Alright, and then the proxy URL. The proxy URL is going to be http api.w_underground.com/API. Alright, now we're going to do one for the search URL. So for that we have path, and I'm going to make the path /search, and let's say proxy URL, and that's going to be http autocomplete .w_underground.com, and that's it. Okay, so that's our proxies. Let's save that, and then what we'll do is go back to our service, and where we have this, we're going to replace it with http localhost. We're on port 8100 and we want to go to /API because that's what we specified. Okay, and then this stuff will stay the same. And then for the search URL, let's change that to, okay, we only want to go up to here, but we're going to say /search, and then of course we have this added on to it. Oops, I have HTTP twice here. Alright, there we go. So let's go ahead and save this. Now we may have to restart the server. I think so. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we'll say ionic serve, and hopefully that works. And there we go. So now if we open up our console and let's start to type something here, and now you can see we're getting our response. This is everything that is matching what we're typing in. Okay, so you can see here we have somewhere in China. Alright, so we know that that's working. So CORS is now set up. So what we want to do now is, instead of just console logging it, we want the cities to show up here. So remember, we have this .results to work with. So let's get rid of the console log, and then let's go into weather HTML, and we're going to go, let's see, we're going to go right under the list here. Alright, and we're going to put another iron list. Okay, and let's put IN item, and what we want to do is loop through the results. So we're going to use an ng4 here. I'm going to say ng4 let result of results okay, there's our for loop, and we want to in here say result dot name. Okay, save it, start to type, and there we go. So as I type, you can see that it updates and we get New York City, New York. Alright, so that's what we want to do for this video. In the next video, we're going to implement a function when we click on one of these to change it and to fetch the weather for that particular location. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.